Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are privately urging President Trump to continue the war against Iran, not to wind it down, not to negotiate, to keep going. According to U.S., Gulf, and Israeli officials quoted by the Associated Press, Gulf allies have told the White House that a month of bombing has not weakened Tehran enough, and that this moment offers a historic opportunity to cripple Iran's clerical rule once and for all. When I read that, I had to sit with it for a minute. Because these are the same countries whose refineries have been struck, whose workers have been killed, whose airspace has been filled with Iranian drones for 31 days straight. And they're asking for more. The question nobody seems to be asking is what that means for the price you pay at the pump and at the grocery store. Let's start with who is saying what. The AP report names Saudi Arabia and the UAE as leading the push, with Kuwait and Bahrain also in favor. Officials from all four countries have privately told the White House they don't want the military operation to end until there are significant changes in Iranian leadership or a dramatic shift in Iranian behavior. The UAE has emerged as the most hawkish of the group and is reportedly pushing for a ground invasion. A Gulf diplomat described the Emirates as only growing more irritated as Iranian missile and drone attacks continue. The UAE has absorbed more than 2,300 missile and drone strikes since February 28th. Meanwhile, Trump praised Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman as a warrior at an event in Miami sponsored by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund last Friday. He said the Gulf countries were all fighting back, but the Gulf countries haven't joined any offensive operations. They host U.S. bases, they intercept incoming fire, they absorb Iranian retaliation. They are not attacking Iran. They are asking the United States to do it for them. This is the part that I think matters most for anyone watching this from the U.S. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait are not minor players in the global energy market. They are the global energy market. Saudi Arabia alone produces over 10 million barrels of oil per day. The UAE produces roughly 3.5 million. Qatar is one of the largest LNG exporters on Earth. When these countries tell the U.S. president to extend a war that has closed the Strait of Hormuz, disrupted 20% of the world's oil supply, and pushed gas to $3.98 a gallon in the United States, they are effectively lobbying for higher energy prices to continue. Not because they want high prices, because they've made a calculation that the long-term strategic benefit of permanently weakening Iran is worth the short-term economic pain. That's their calculation. But the pain is landing on your household, not theirs. Here's what Saudi Arabia's demands actually look like. According to the AP, the Saudis want an eventual settlement that neutralizes Iran's nuclear program, destroys its ballistic missile capabilities, ends Tehran's support for proxy groups, and ensures the Strait of Hormuz can never be shut down by Iran again. Those are not conditions for ending a war. Those are conditions for regime change. Achieving any one of them would require a fundamental transformation of Iran's government. Achieving all four would require its removal. And removal means a longer war, more disruption, more months of the strait being closed, and more months of elevated gas, diesel, food, and shipping costs flowing through to American households. The UAE's position is even more blunt. A minister of state at their foreign ministry wrote in a public column this week that an Iranian regime that launches ballistic missiles at homes and weaponizes global trade is no longer an acceptable feature of the regional landscape. That is a country publicly saying, this government should not exist. That's not a negotiating position. That's a war aim with no clear end date. Now here's the contradiction that nobody is covering. These same countries are paying an enormous price for this war. Qatar's Ras Laffan facility, which processes 20% of the world's LNG, was hit by Iranian missiles and needs 3 to 5 years to repair. Kuwait has had refineries struck and soldiers wounded. Bahrain has intercepted hundreds of missiles and drones. Saudi Arabia's eastern province, home to its most critical oil infrastructure including Ras Tanura and Abqaiq, has been under repeated attack. More than 30 civilians have been killed in Gulf countries since the war began, many of them migrant workers. The UAE's image as a safe business hub has been shaken by 2,300 incoming strikes, and yet they want more. If you ask me, there's a logic to it, even though it's uncomfortable. These countries have lived under Iranian threat for decades. Drones, proxies, missile programs, the constant possibility that the Hormuz card gets played. They see a window right now where the U.S. military is engaged, Iran's leadership has been decapitated, and the IRGC is degraded. They don't know when this window opens again, so they're willing to absorb damage now to eliminate the threat permanently. The problem is that their strategy has a direct cost for you. Every additional week the war continues means another week of the Strait of Hormuz at 5% capacity, another week of Brent crude above $100, another week of diesel at $5.37, which means higher shipping costs on every product that moves by truck, train, or container ship. Gas is up $1 from pre-war levels. Diesel is up $1.61. Mortgage rates are climbing because the Fed can't cut while energy-driven inflation is running hot. The S&P 500 has dropped since the war began, and the 10-year Treasury yield has risen half a point to 4.4%, reflecting inflation fears. And now, the countries that produce the oil the world depends on are telling the president that the war hasn't gone far enough. They're not asking for a ceasefire, they're asking for escalation. The UAE is pushing for a ground invasion. Saudi Arabia wants Iran's entire military capability dismantled. If those positions hold, this war doesn't end in weeks. It goes on for months. And every month it continues, the cost on American households compounds. There are two paths from here. In the first, the Gulf allies' push for escalation doesn't move Trump. Pakistan brokers talks. A framework emerges. The pause on energy strikes holds past April 6th. Oil begins to drift down. The strait starts reopening. Your gas price peaks somewhere around $4.25 and slowly comes back toward $3.50 by summer. Painful but temporary. In the second, Trump listens to Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. The ground operation goes forward. Karg Island gets seized. The strait stays closed for months. Oil pushes past Goldman's $147 comparison to the 2008 record. Gas passes $5 nationally. Diesel crosses $6. The IEA's comparison to the 1970s energy crisis stops being a forecast and starts being a daily reality. And the countries pushing for that outcome have made a strategic bet that the long-term security gains are worth the global economic damage. I don't know which way this goes. What I do know is that the countries with the most influence over the world's oil supply are not pushing for this war to end. They're pushing for it to expand. And the cost of that decision, whether it turns out to be right or wrong for the region, will be measured in your gas tank, on your grocery receipt, and in your mortgage rate for the rest of this year.